here we go. So this is Judge Subrahamian, okay? Let's just go with Judge. It's Aaron Subrahamian, so Judge Aaron. So here's kind of the background with him. He's super, super fair. So he was a partner at literally one of the wealthiest law firms in the world. It's called Sussman Godfrey. They are known for their litigation. They are amazing at that. But before he did that, he went to like Case Western, he went to Columbia Law, and then y'all, he clerked. He knows everything about federal court, procedure, law, how to do it right, how to follow the rules. Because first he was a federal clerk for a judge in the New York district court, the same one that he's presiding over, for another judge back in the day. After that, he did the appeals court, the Second Circuit. So in this case, I felt like he was really trying to follow the law, trying to do everything right and do it fair so that he would not get overturned. So it makes perfect sense. Hit that like as you're coming on in. It makes perfect sense. Yes, we're going to talk about the frozen assets. It makes perfect sense that this guy was taking so much care and so much time to make sure that he was following the law and wouldn't get overturned by the appellate court. And then he actually clerked for the Supreme Court. Clerk means you literally write the opinions, you do all the research for a particular Supreme Court justice. For him, it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yep, that's the woman who, worked on women's rights, blah, 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 blah. But let's take it from the top. So I want him on the screen so that you can follow me as I'm doing this quick recap with his opinion. And these are my actual notes. Now, first of all, they opened by saying the government was like, well, Your Honor, they asked the government, like, what witnesses, if any, did they want to call? And they were like, well, Your Honor, we were going to call Mia. Y'all, this is Mia. Remember, Mia was this chick, okay? She was this chick, Caucasian. She was the assistant that worked for Diddy for years and claimed that he SA'd her. And then part of the problem that the jury had with believing her testimony was then she went on to work for him for like 7 or 8 more years. And once he laid her off, she begged for her job back. So it's like, of course, naturally, it was difficult for jurors to buy that. Now, me personally, when I saw her testimony, those first few days, I think it was the first day and a half, I'd never seen anybody so terrified on the stand. And I was very confused why she was so terrified, because I felt like she was the level of terrified that you are the first time that you speak out and tell someone your story about an essay. So come to find out, it literally was the first time speaking out publicly. She had only told the feds like a year into their investigation, and the feds were the first persons she had ever told. She never told Cassie. She never told family, friends, whatever. But anyway, so the government was like, oh, well, we were going to call her. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? Are you crazy? If you're not going to call Cassie, you don't need to call nobody. Just cut it out. Just submit the letters, right? And so ultimately, Mia had decided that she got scared, according to the government, decided she didn't want to come testify because of submissions that were made on behalf of the defendant, etc. And I think she was terrified that he might get out. And so the government really harped on the fact that, well, she's not here, Your Honor, because she's terrified of him, and subsequent comments that he's made, such as stating that he had a speaking engagement set up for Monday, which he actually did. So I guess they missed him, was absolutely ridiculous. So next up, so after they talked about me, I was like, this is very stupid, because I felt like the government is still tone deaf and like unreasonable is how I would phrase it. And when you're unreasonable, I've said this before, I feel like judges no longer listen to you and give you all the things you're asking for, because you have now established yourself to be unreasonable and overreach. So then Diddy's team was like, well, Diddy wants to speak to the court. His children would like to speak. There was a Reverend, Dr. Reverend Gary Johnson. He wanted to speak. And 2 other doctors wanted to speak, and an inmate. In the end, the doctors and the inmate didn't speak good because this was taking too long. Y'all, that Reverend the Reverend was thinking about elbow. I see why he's a Reverend. But here's what was weird. The Reverend didn't even know Diddy. That man sat up there and talked for about 15, 20 minutes. I fell asleep. Okay? I was sleepy. The Reverend put me to sleep completely. So let me stop this one. And he got on my last nerve. He was nice and everything, but the problem with the Reverend, and the Reverend was like a former inmate himself and was talking about redemption. He literally opened by talking about how the reason he was there at court to speak on behalf of Diddy is because he got a phone call from Joey Buttafuoco, who's one of the pastor's homeboys. Y'all, Joey Buttafuoco is a man that went viral for having his mistress, Amy Fisher, attempt to unalive his wife. That is probably not who you want to be your homeboy. I was really like, what are y'all talking about? Then he went on to say he had never met Diddy. Well, why are you here, sir? We got to go. I had a flight to catch. I was trying to go to Mexico. Let me grab my mojito. Speaking of Mexico, hold on. I said, this sounds crazy. This sounds like paying somebody to come say you're a good person. And I was like, they would do better off actually using people who know him. Like, I don't know, where was TD Jakes? I feel like they should be able to get some Republican pastor or something. Yeah, the Reverend was very unnecessary and he wasted time. But it was good. I needed a nap. I was exhausted. Now, Diddy was wearing a white sweater. He was all gray. All his hair was gray. He had this thick little beard. It was completely gray. He looked like my granddaddy Roosevelt, actually. Head janitor at the World Trade Center in Dallas. Head janitor, my granddaddy was. All right, then they went back and forth. They talked about acquitted conduct, and the judge basically affirmed he was not going to be considering anything that Diddy was acquitted for as far as setting the range of time that he felt Diddy should be incarcerated. So he was not going to use acquitted stuff for that. However, he was like, the range that was set, which he agreed with, that range was set up by probation, and that was from 70 months to 87 months, I believe is what it was. And he was saying that range, he is allowed, that the judge is allowed to shift higher on that range based on any of the beatdowns, basically, that occurred, any fraud or coercion, if the court finds that that actually happened by a preponderance of the evidence. Remember, preponderance of the evidence is basically like 75%. It doesn't mean 100%, is it? Or is it? No, actually, I think that's 51%. Wait, preponderance. I was getting this. Wait. Wait. Preponderance. Hold on. It's not the reasonable doubt. Oh, 51%. Sorry, you had preponderance of the evidence requires that it's more likely than not that fraud or coercion likely occurred. That was the main one that the judge was focused on. And sure enough, the judge was like, absolutely, fraud or coercion happened in certain instances. And the judge was specific. The judge gave the example. And so what he was saying is, as a result of that, he can go on the more aggressive side of sentencing. Now, the example would be this, right? Let's say you were charged with like misdemeanor theft, and you were also charged with aggravated assault with a weapon. The aggravated assault charge, let's say that range of time would be 10 years to life. But the theft charge is, only because it's a misdemeanor, it's up to 1 year. So you only get convicted of that misdemeanor. You can get up to 1 year, but they can take the fact that you threatened somebody to say, we're going to give you closer to 1 year than we are to probation. That would be the example there. Anyway, so they went through the acquitted conduct, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to tell you about the strange things that happened in court. We're going to be more specific there. So then there was like all these different objections that both sides had. And the government wanted to ratchet up the sentence, wanted him to be charged with, they call it enhancements. And basically the judge said, I'm only going with what probation says. The enhancements probation says are applicable. I'm in agreement. Government, I'm not agreeing with this extra stuff you throwing up in here. And Diddy's side, I'm not agreeing to the BS you're asking for either. Let me tell you, the stuff that the Diddy was asking for sounded real crazy. Let me tell you, one of the things that he asked the court to do, here we are. It said, we want that Diddy was objecting to referring to Jane as a victim. Now, I don't blame you for asking, for trying, Diddy. That was a good try. Because as if you followed my channel, I felt like Jane was a victim of poor pussy management, and that she should have monitored her money better. But I do think that when Diddy did knock her in the head, hit her back in the head, he didn't need to go that hard. He could have just swung her around the room a little bit. He didn't need to, punch her back. He also objected. He didn't want the escorts to be classified as victims, and he didn't want. Oh yeah, but he didn't object to Cassie. He said, yeah, Cassie could be classified as a victim. And so as a result, because those were classified as victims, it was like more than one victim. It was considered as an enhancement or more negative. Now, y'all, this was really crazy. Then the judge was like, of course, Cassie and Jane are victims. Like, that's who you're accused of transporting. And he said that the hookers, y'all know that's what I call the male escorts, the hookers were considered victims too. And then the key thing, though, is that the judge found and agreed with probation that, in fact, coercion and fraud took place. Therefore, there was an enhancement for that. And the judge's logic on that was the main reason the judge came up with the sentencing window that he had. Now, here's the thing. This is why the fraud and coercion is not considered punishing him for something he was acquitted of. There's a different kind of fraud and coercion that applies to sex trafficking, right? But here, the judge said coercion is simply there being negative consequences for a victim's decisions. In other words, if a victim turns you down and says, no, I don't want to do a freak off, is there going to be a negative consequence? And therefore, are they saying, okay, I'm going to do it because they don't want the negative consequence? Well, we saw the hotel breakdown, the hotel beatdown video. Clearly, she wanted to leave the freak off. He whooped her tail. Negative consequence. So basically what the judge was saying is under the law, if the fraud or coercion incident either happened at or during a freak off or close in time to one, even like within a week of one or 2 weeks, then those can be used to say, hey, this is more than just transporting some hookers. This is being violent with the hookers you're transporting. So if you're violent with the hookers that you're transporting, I cannot treat you the same way as someone who's nice and kind and gives the hookers Skittles and, gives them all the things. In other words, don't be mean to your hookers or you're going to get more time. It says next up, Diddy is charged with of Tupac. That could be. It says, okay, so the enhancements were not double jeopardy. No, the enhancements, it's double jeopardy when instead of using the sentencing range, as I use my example, the sentencing range for theft, they change and use the sentencing range for assault after you've been acquitted of that. Here, no, they stayed in the range for the Mann Act, and he went slightly higher than what Diddy's team wanted. One more month. That's it. They wanted 14 months. They wanted one more month, which would have meant he got straight out. The judge was like, no, he can't do that. Ultimately, what the judge selected is the sentencing range that probation recommended was 60 months, 60. And the judge actually went lower than that, took 10 months off. Specifically, he said he was taking those months off due to Diddy being a first-time offender, as well as him suffering substance abuse. And that is how the judge came up with 50 months, 50. So let me just check my notes real quick, see if there's other things that I witnessed in the courtroom that I was like, okay, we need to make sure we include before I explain how much time he's really going to have to do. Here we go. So it's got, Cassie and Jane were definitely victims. Oh, and in the hearing, they acknowledged that, do I think he has a great chance of winning on the appeal? I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to put that on the screen because that's what we're going to address right now. I am the only person talking about this. Which part, hon? Everyone else is repeating the narrative his lawyers are spinning. Oh, really? The enhancements seem kind of unfair. If a person is acquitted of something, I don't understand why it's included in the sentencing. Well, here's why. They're not including trafficking. They're including violence. Why? Because if you beat a prostitute, then when it's time to be sentenced for being a pimp, you have to get a harsher sentence. You see what I'm saying? It's not like he was never exonerated or acquitted of domestic violence. Remember, throughout the trial, his lawyers won by saying that hey guys, this is just DV. And the judge's point was, okay, I hear you, but you have now admitted this. So based on the legal standards, I have to consider that in my sentencing. And I cannot sentence you the same as someone who just drives hookers across state lines. I have to sentence you. And there were specific instances that the judge says made it, were aggravating, basically, that made it more severe. Specifically, he said the fact that in cons, just before cons, on the plane, he beat Cassie, and then he threatened to blackmail her with the photos if her mother didn't give him, basically get the home mortgage and pay him $20,000. The extra $20,000. They did all that. So the judge is like, I have to consider that this is how you got her to go across state lines and do this and have sex. I can't not, cause I'm explaining why he was not sentenced for acquitted behavior, correct. So he was not sentenced for acquitted behavior, he was sentenced for violence. Remember, he was not acquitted of domestic violence because he wasn't charged with domestic violence. So in other words, what got him more time is domestic violence. He was not acquitted of it, he wasn't charged with that, but what he was charged with is being violent, or basically what he was sentenced for was being violent when he transported the hookers. Thank you. Oh, thank you for the comments. Okay, so that was the main. Now, as far as the appeal for those factors, let's talk the appeal. It says, do I think the tape and DV will help him in the appeal? No, I'm going to say no, and the reason is why. The appeal is for, he was not acquitted for DV. It's like this. If you come in a courtroom and you're like, the reason I did all those things is because I smoke crack. I love smoking crack. I used to smoke crack all the time. And when I smoked crack, I would, beat my wife. And you're there for beating your wife. The judge can consider the fact that you've acknowledged that you only would beat her, or that you would beat her when you would smoke crack. It makes it worse because now you're committing 2 crimes for the one. Somebody said, explain it like 5. And someone said, that's if you believe Cassie. So I think a lot of people believe, if they didn't believe Cassie, they believe her mama, and they believe the records that Cassie's mom put on the screen showing that, including the email where Cassie was like, hey, he's blackmailing me. If you guys don't pay him this money, he's going to release these S tapes of me. People believed the CNN video, the video of the beatdown, and there was a hooker in the room. So that was part of the freak off. So that was a large part of it. And then the judge was saying, basically, Lord have mercy. The judge was saying, due to the fact that so much of the violence happened related to the freak offs, he's allowed to consider the violence related to that. It would be different if it was like violent. He didn't consider, for example, violence towards Capricorn Clark. He did not consider the blowing up of Kid Cudi's car. He did not consider, allegedly kidnapping Capricorn. None of that was considered. All he considered, and it's not funny, all he considered is what went down at or in direct relation to the freak offs. Now, let me show you this one. And this is, there we go. Y'all. All right, so then I'm going to give you, So then Diddy stood up and he gave, okay, so the kid spoke, and I cannot harp on this enough. The children speaking was so poignant. That had so many people in the courtroom crying, because whether you felt sorry for Diddy or not, you felt sorry for those children. You felt sorry for those kids. Hold on. Now, I will never forget. For me, I felt like, now the girls, they said, "I'm scared, Your Honor. I'm scared." They said, "We are scared to live our life without our dad. It's bad enough. It is it's bad enough that we have to live our lives without our mothers, and that they lost." I didn't realize they were only like 8 or 9 when they lost their mom. But they're like, to now have to do it without their father is is devastating for them. So there was no dry eye. The girlfriend, like Raven, she was there. She was in tears. All of his side of the people were crying. And when the children spoke, I felt like Justin was the most eloquent, which makes sense because he did go to college. He went to UCLA. And let me tell you what Justin said. Justin said so much without having to say it all. He said, "Your Honor, I believe this probably saved my father's life." He said, "My father is," and what he meant is his dad, Diddy, acknowledged in a letter to the court, Diddy acknowledged that he had not been sober for 25 years. For 25 years, Diddy had not been sober. He said, "My father's mind is so much more clear." He said he's so much more patient. He didn't use the word aggressive, but basically he was like, he's more calm. He takes more time. Now, I mean, obviously when you're in jail, you ain't got nothing to do but like listen and enjoy your visits. But it made me think of this. It reminded me of this, y'all. Now we talking just, remember this? Diddy was arrested over assaulting his son's football coach. That is Justin's football coach. So Diddy had been arrested by police in California over claims he hit a sports coach with a gym weight. So Justin was on the football team at UCLA. It is so hard to get on that football team. Justin made his way onto it. And it says officers at UCLA had to deal with an altercation at the college training complex. The rapper has a son named Justin who plays as defensive back. Nobody was seriously injured, and Combs was released from a county jail. He's charged with assault with a deadly weapon. The dispute involved a gym kettlebell, and it took place in the office of UCLA assistant coach Sal Alosi. It's reported a team assistant was shouting at Justin repeatedly during a game which Diddy was attending. He's then said to have confronted the coach in his office after the match. This is an unfortunate incident for all parties involved, they said. While the police continue to review the matter, we'll let the legal process take its course, blah, 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 about Diddy. So I say that to say, when that young man was like, he's so much more calm, and this is the type of stuff he's talking about. And I think after this, he either quit the team or, got cut from the team. But this ended that young man's college football career, because his dad didn't know how to act. And what's crazy is none of the rest of our dads would even get the opportunity to be one-on-one in an office with their coaches like that. But I say that as just one example where I'm saying that the children are now able to articulate, what their dad was like. And he wasn't perfect then. He was aggressive. He was angry. He was so many things. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Let me see if I can see it on here. Oh my gosh, I see it. Thank you so much, Bree. Britt, I really hope that. It says, can he get out early on good behavior, considering all the classes that he took? Hold on. Yes, I'm going to answer that next. So the gist of it was the children were begging for mercy to have their father out. And I actually believe when the judge was listening to that, it was part of why the judge was like, I can't let him straight out. Because this man, at this point, it's like he's been involuntarily sober, right? Because he didn't have a choice. And so I could tell that the judge, it became clear the judge wanted to give him additional time to ensure and cement that all these things he was talking about were true, and that a true addict gets a chance to get help. So let's talk about the time he's actually going to serve. So hold on, let me pull this down. Because there's a lot of different like websites, pages, all those different things. And some of them are lying. Well, most of them are lying. Hold on, let me add this one real quick. And just to let you know, don't forget, you can always go to my website, SymoneRedwine.com, book a consultation with me anywhere in the nation. I help with legal matters. And if I can't help with your matter, I will refund your money promptly. But here, getting to, hold on, here we are. There we are. Okay, so getting to the actual time he's going to serve. So he was sentenced to 50 months. This is what we care about, right? 50 months. And I'm going to quickly break down the numbers of how this works. And wait till you see the catch. All right. So he was sentenced with 50 months. Then you deduct the time he's already served. That's 13 months pre-trial credit that he gets. Well, he's asked the court to participate. It's called RDAP, but basically it's a program for people with substance abuse. Now, based on the original time that you're sentenced through that program, it can knock off some time. So for him, it's the residential drug abuse program. With that program, if you have a sentence that's over 36 months, you're eligible to knock off 12 months of time if you successfully complete basically the drug rehab. So in doing that, he goes from 37 months left to serve to 25 months by successfully completing that program. Now then, there is a chance for some good time conduct. So how that works in the feds is you get 54 days per year. So the gist of it is that he would get about 6 months off. So because there's a so that's about 7 months he would get off of 50. Long story short, we go from 50, then we take away 13. Now we're at 25 months. We're going to take away roughly 6 months for good time credit. And then there's the First Step Act. First step, if the inmate is minimum risk and stays that way, does not get in trouble, they can earn basically 50% credit for the time that they have left. It's at the discretion of the Bureau of Prisons, but effectively it's estimated he could likely knock off 10 more months, meaning 9 months left to serve. 9 months actually left to serve from now. So he could be home by next Thanksgiving based on all the things that go into play. So effectively it was 50 months. They took off 13 that he already served, 12 for the drug program, 6 months good conduct, and then 10 months for the First Step Act if he doesn't get in any trouble, which would leave him with about 9 months. And there's like this cute little chart that I have. Hold on, I'm gonna put this chart on the screen. When I tell you, it's not as easy as you would think. Let me share this one with you. It is not as easy. I repeat. And now that First Step Act recently came into law, and it came in under Biden, just FYI. So that's a new thing. Remember, prior to that, you had to do 85% of your time. I want you to see this chart. Here. Okay. So this is the sentencing chart that I'm talking about, where they started at 50, went down to 37 for credit, with 25 for the drug program. Then there's good time, and then the First Step Act, 9 more months. He can do that, but not only that, he needs all of this time in order to basically be eligible for some form of redemption for the people who are really upset about what he did and how he treated Cassie, etc. So I feel like by him getting a 4-year sentence, at least, like, if he would have just walked out, there would have been a number of people that would have been angry and wouldn't have even given him a chance for redemption. But at least by him being sentenced to 8 months and then him having to behave himself to get out any earlier, I think it leaves more room potentially for people to give him a chance to redeem himself, for him to get aspects of his life back. But y'all, it's not going to be simple at all, because remember, he still has 5 years of supervised release. 5 years of supervised release. Let me tell you, this is Dana, go to bed. I know you didn't follow the trial. Diddy will be fine. Yeah, I mean, 9 months is nothing. When you're rich like that, you don't need redemption. That's true. Okay, it's not that it's true, but for Diddy, he can't stand humiliation, and he can't stand, like, being treated like regular people. Like right now, I said on Don Lemon, I was like, that man can't get a reservation at the Ruby Tuesdays, because if he goes sit somewhere, there's a bunch of people in there that would protest the restaurant. There are a lot of places that he can't fly, he can't travel to comfortably. So he has 5 years. Let's go to the supervised release. 5 years of that. Y'all, on the federal level, it is extremely difficult. I've spoken with criminal attorneys that I'm friends with that do federal criminal law, and they said they don't think Diddy can successfully do it. If he violates, and I'm about to run you through the requirements, if he violates that probation, he's going right back to jail. Y'all, so here's a large part of what he will not be able to do. Number one, no drugs, no alcohol. Well, we're going to see if he is truly clean, because with the no drugs and no alcohol, it's going to be random drug testing throughout. Random drug testing. In addition, no alcohol. This is a Ciroc boy. This is Mr. Ciroc. He's not going to be able to drink alcohol. It may not be for the whole 5 years, but at least for a portion, especially when it's someone who's gone through a drug offender course. They always tell you, like, if you can get addicted to drugs, when you take out the drugs, it leaves room. If you drink, it leaves room for you to get addicted to drinking. So he's going to have mandatory drug testing and urine testing. He's going to have an absolute ban on all substances, but he will also likely be banned from drinking alcohol. So that's going to mean the people around him, his kids, everything. No international travel without advance court permission. Even if it's in your own private jet, they don't care. Even domestic travel, you have to have notice or approval. So these speaking engagements, this and that, you have to get approval every time. Then you've got financial monitoring. He is required, he has to disclose all his income, assets, and debts. And next, I'm going to share with you what they want to seize from him. I got it in writing. They're going to want to know about all his money. He's going to have to pay all his fines, restitution. His restitution is $500,000. I mean, obviously, he's got that. Associations, he cannot associate with any other known felons. That's out of it. No known felons or people engaged in criminal activity. I'm wondering if he won't be able to associate with KK, Christina Karam, his chief of staff, or D-Rock, because the judge at the hearing listed KK as a co-conspirator and specifically mentioned her. So, and then also he's subject to various searches and surveillance. They can just walk up into his house, walk up into his car, any of the houses. And you know how he be having 50, 11 people in them houses. So it doesn't matter. You don't get to be like, oh, well, I own the house, but that's my California house. I haven't been there. It don't matter. All of that. So his son, who did that little rap song about how they searched the wrong house, that son, if he ends up bringing something to a house and it gets searched, oh, he's going to be in all type of trouble. And then he has to report all his business dealings. Any money that is spent, they got to make sure he's not buying no more hookers, okay? No more hookers. So the bottom line is that it really takes away their autonomy. And those people that are that powerful, they're used to being able to come and go and be in charge. Not here for 5. Can you imagine taking an alcohol test for 5 years? Thank you so much, Gail. I really appreciate that. Let me see it. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So given that sentencing, I would be remiss if I did not share with you the quote of the day. The quote, here we go. There you go. I got it right here. Where did it just go? The quote of the day that the judge used to explain, here we go, why it was that this was the sentence and why it was so necessary. Here we go. It is, here we go. Hold on, we got to put it back up. Y'all, I'm using a new software, so that's why it's like a little tricky here. I could have sworn I did that. Here we go. And, okay, here we go. All right, so in the end, what really pissed the judge off the most, and I'm gonna share this with you because you have to see this, because you're not gonna believe me. Now remember, I showed y'all what that judge looked like. He's this skilled Indian man, right? In the end, what the judge felt like is, number one, you can't run around talking about, hey guys, this is just domestic violence, without expecting it violence used towards, related to, and with your hookers is going to get you more time than if you were nice to your hookers. But most specifically, the judge felt like, look, number one, when you were arrested, there were drugs all in your hotel room. There was $9,000 cash in your hotel room. The judge didn't talk about the $9,000, but I'm gonna get to that. There were drugs everywhere, and you were preparing for a freak off. There was the women's clothes, there was the baby oil, there was the lube. You were literally preparing to have a freak off, knowing you were under federal indictment, knowing you were about to be arrested any day now. That is just how focused you are on your own pleasure. And the judge specifically said, you think that just because you weren't profiting financially from these women that it's better? The judge said it's actually worse, because it means you were doing these things, you were being violent, you were doing this stuff on a whim. You don't even need it. You were doing it for fun because you could. And so then the judge said, and most specifically, a month after you apologized for beating Cassie, you do the same thing to Jane. You beat Jane and then force her to have a freak off. And then he quotes this part of the transcript specifically. He said, you then opened your hand with a pill in it, and you said, take this effing pill. Take this effing pill. You're not going to ruin my effing night. You better go out there. You're not going to ruin my effing night. Get out there and suck his D. F him. I don't care. Just, you're not going to ruin my effing night. And then she did it to him. So when the judge said that, I was like, oh, you have to. This little bitty Indian man, y'all, when he said that, I was like, oh, okay. All right, Diddy's going all the way to the jailhouse. It was all the way. Said the judge made some points, but his words could result in appeal. Oh, there will absolutely be an appeal. I just don't think it's going to win. And here's the thing. Remember, I just went through how much time Diddy has left. Number one, by the time the appeal even makes it to the next court, Diddy's going to be out. Diddy's going to be out. So he can do it. Absolutely. You got the money. You got the lawyers. Certainly file it. But that judge used to work for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. He used to write her opinions. He used to write the opinions of the court, which means when other people would appeal rulings, he literally was the one writing the opinions for the appellate court for New York. It's called the Second Circuit. As a result, this man has dotted his I's and crossed his T's and all that stuff from the beginning, so much so that I don't think that appeal will be successful. But I do believe that this has been, like, the arguments that the defense has made in the court of public opinion have been successful, because that's all they really needed. Media-wise, they needed just enough people to be able to sit there and feel that Diddy was done wrong, so that it will then make it so much easier for Diddy when it's time for him to get out, and that he'll be able to go back to something closer to, you know, a regular life. So as far as time, he's got about 9 months left. He's going to get, the court agreed that he can go to the drug program. He wants to go to Fort Dix, but the judge was saying that they can't force Fort Dix to accept him. That's up to the Bureau of Prisons. But if you know somebody that's like over there in Fort Dix, you should definitely tell them they need to try to like hang out with Diddy and be his friend and maybe pick up on some games. Yep. So now it's about 9 months. But the an appeal to the next court, which is Second Circuit, oh God, that appeal could take 2 years easily. The judge actually went under, that is right. The judge gave him less than what probation even wanted him to get. Oops. Let me see if I have the government submission. Yep, I think I have it right here. where it says, here we are, where the government was like, basically was talking about the amount of time. And regarding that time, yep, it was 60. It was 60 that probation requested. The judge went lower. So when you're dealing with appeals, you have to be able to show. And let me tell you this, as far as bias of the judge, I'm going to give you some specific examples. That judge, actually throughout the case, I actually felt he very, very much leaned towards Diddy. As far as objections, there were so many objections that Diddy's team won that were so critical and powerful. Let me give you an example. All right, so when Capricorn Clark testified, she testified and they brought out the fact that, yes, she claimed she was kidnapped and all of the things, but that she later begged Diddy for her job back. Well, the government wanted to establish that, and they were saying, in the defense was like, well, she got a settlement from him and she still wanted to work from him later. Well, the government was trying to establish that, yeah, she got a settlement 14 years ago in 2012, but that money was nothing and it's long gone. And now so therefore, now she has been blackballed. Well, Diddy's team objected to her stating the dollar amount of how much she settled for. They would not let it in, and the judge agreed with them. The judge would not allow in how much she settled for. You know what else? So then I was like, well, that's directly relevant, because if she got some millions, then I'm like, yeah, why are you begging to go back? But if she only got like 50K, and we know lawyers get their money, then I can totally understand why you want to go back. And then secondly, they were trying to establish the reason she asked for her job back is because Diddy blackballed her. She told the story of how she was so excited. She had a meeting with Jimmy Iovine, and she goes to the meeting, and that Jimmy, only to find out it wasn't a meeting for a job. Jimmy told her, you need to drop that lawsuit against Diddy or else something really bad can happen to you. By lawsuit, it was the employment law claim that she made against Diddy. He was like, you need to drop it or something bad can happen. Do you know, not only did the judge grant the defense's objection to have that struck, but he told the jury, you may not consider that, you must ignore it. And I think it was removed from the transcript, meaning if the jury ever asked for parts of the transcript, they would not even see that, ever. Same thing with the girl that was hung over the balcony, Brianna, whatever her name was, Brianna. And remember, everyone was like, Brianna's a liar, Brianna's a liar. Well, one of the key things that the government, when they were trying to reestablish her reputation and show she wasn't a liar, she got her date wrong, but that it did in fact happen that she was hung over the balcony, was the fact that Diddy's team offered her a dollar amount for a settlement. Each time the government tried to get it in, Diddy's team objected, and the judge said, nope, you can't have it in. So if you're saying, if Diddy's team is saying, hey, this never happened, but if a $1 million settlement offer, or let's even say $100,000 settlement offer had been made shortly after the incident, that actually helps support that something must have happened or something did in fact happen. So I say that to say that, like, so many critical objections, the judge erred on the side of keeping it out. The reason judges do that is to reduce the grounds for appeal, because most appeals are won by admitting in evidence that should not be admitted. That is the number one way that you're able to get an appeal. All right, so we're almost in here. And then, did he really? Oh yeah, someone asked, did Diddy really say that he had a speaking engagement? Yes, he did. He actually did. And his own lawyers, in fact, claimed that, oh, it wasn't a speaking engagement, it was a teaching engagement. He wanted to share. Here we go. He wanted to share all that he's learned, the free game and what he was doing with other inmates. He wanted to share that with others. So his lawyer set up for him a speaking engagement in Miami for Monday, if the judge were to let him out. And the claim was that, oh, it was just supposed to be an example of, what do they call it? Like how if the judge were to let him out, there is a transition plan. So I just dropped a link. If you want to come in and you want to ask a question, you don't have to show your face. Somebody said he was a fool for that. I was shocked. Says, then she wasn't blackballed. Listen, I'm done talking to you because you have absolutely no idea what's going on. Oh, you guys are going, oh, y'all talking to each other. Y'all ain't talking to me. Mm-mm. All right. And then the judge quoted the transcript. The judge had that. Yeah, we talked about how the freak offs, according to the judge, were directly relevant. Oh, and then y'all got that link now. I just posted that link if you want to come up and ask a question. And then I am going to, I think the only thing we have left is the asset forfeiture. I got the asset forfeiture documents. Come on, this is what the government wants. Let's see. Here we go. As you're coming on in. Somebody said classic narcissist behaviors. Because who in their right mind would do that? Well, yeah, that's true. All right. So, make sure it's sharing it. All right, let's do it this way. Oh. Let's do the share. There we are. Okay, here we are. All right, so the big question was, what's he going to have to forfeit? So during court, I took immaculate notes, and I noticed that they said that the government and Diddy's legal team had come to what's called a consent agreement, a preliminary consent agreement as to what's going to be forfeited. And I was like, it must not be anything too important if they're consenting to it. Now remember, it's regarding forfeiture, it's items or property that was used to effectuate the crime. So here, it could be anything related to executing the freak-offs. So some people were thinking like, oh, is it some properties? Is it this? And I'm like, hell no. I knew that had to be a no, because there's no way both sides would have agreed on that. You see what I'm saying? There's no way they would have agreed on forfeiting his properties, because his properties are worth millions in exchange for this. So let's go on down and let's look at this little list. Now, there's some stuff on there I want to bid on. So here's what's interesting. Number one is that according to the rules, they actually say you can go to forfeiture.gov is the website. Forfeiture.gov. And they're going to be posting a list of all of Diddy's stuff to be forfeited. And you can go there and you can see if there's anything you want and you can bid ultimately. But also, they're publishing this list because if anyone claims that they are actually entitled to some of this property, there are procedures listed in here where basically they have to contact the government and say, wait, no, I have a right to this property. So it would have been, so for example, if it was a house and an ex-wife or current wife is like, wait, that house is half mine, then they would be able to petition and basically complain and try to get their half. But yeah, here it is, forfeiture.gov is where you can go. Now, let's go to the juicy part. Here goes the list. Y'all, here goes the list. Hit that like, y'all, and hit that subscribe. So, 4 Seagate hard drives that were seized March of 25. A purple iPhone, a black iPhone, more hard drives, an iPhone 12 Pro Max. I have one, and I can tell you, even T-Mobile is not taking it as a trade-in because the thing is so goddamn old. iPhone 13, some more thumb drives, gray cases, an iPad gray case, and yes, all these phones. iPhone Pro 13 Max, basically thumb drives, iPhones. Ooh, this one is a charcoal Apple iPhone, guys. Thumb drives, iPhone, more flash drives. Part of me wants to get the flash drives because what I want to know is there stuff on it? If so, I want the flash drive just so I want to see, it can't be the naked pictures. There's no way. If there's photos of victims on there, they've surely deleted the crap off of theirs. But it's all thumb drives, y'all. Check this out. And then an iPad, an Apple, a MacBook, more cell phones. There was something in here. Hold on. I took a note of what I wanted. Hold on. I want, number 77. We coming to it. A silver iPad, a MacBook, more laptops, a desktop, A Lenovo desktop at that. Those are a blackjack tower. I don't know what a blackjack tower is, but I think it's like for cloud drive. 77. Here we go. Now 77. Look, I want this one. It says the Sony DV cam video. Like that's like a camcorder. Cassette tapes labeled Ibiza tapes. I want to see what went down in Ibiza. Don't you? That's what I want. What happened in Ibiza? Who was naked in Ibiza or whatever? I'll make a documentary. I want that. But then what's interesting is they actually referenced in the earlier part of this, there was one item and one item only where it said if he appeals his verdict and the appeal is successful, they will return one item and one item only, and that is item number 86, which is the $9,000 that they seized from him at the Park Hyatt Hotel the night before he was arrested. That was September 16th. The night before he was arrested and indicted. They took $9,000 from him. So they're saying, hey, if you appeal and you're right, we'll give you your money back, but we're not going to give you back any of these stupid ass laptops and hard drives. So I'm so disappointed. It's just electronics. It's just electronics. Somebody said I'm trying to see The Punisher too. I am. Well, I've heard really good things about The Punisher. Y'all, The Punisher was one of the male hookers. It says, Classy, we all see the corrupt government. How TF do you think he's been getting away with this for so long? That's small change to Diddy. Nah, they're gonna give the money back. Remember, he's already got to pay $500,000 in it's not restitution. It's in fines. And none of the money is going to Cassie or Jane. They're not getting any funds. So I did want to clarify that. Let me see. All right. I don't see anybody here ready to join or that has a question. Let me just see if I missed any other questions. Yeah, why are you disappointed? Did you want them to take more? It wasn't that did I want them to take more? I like mess and I like tea. Like I'm a all-American woman. I like mess and I like tea. So I wanted there to be someone tea, but I also really like it when I'm right. So I felt confirmed when I was like, oh, it's not going to be anything juicy because both sides would not have been able to agree so quickly. How much do I think he spent on legal fees so far? I'm going to say $5 million, $3 to $5 million. Somebody said, who's paying Jane's rent? That's what I believe there's also an order that he has to like stay away from the victims, which means, because I heard the judge use some terminology for that, which means if that's the case, Jane, you got to pay your own rent. You can't be, if there's a stay away order, it also means stay away from my pocketbook. You got to stay away from my wallet. Where were you sitting in the courthouse? I was sitting in an overflow room. I was not in the room with Diddy and his children. I was sitting directly in front of the video screen. It says she better not. Cassie is fine with the money. Someone said 10 million. Very well. Do I think they will release his jail calls? Absolutely. That's going to be a great one. Absolutely. Oh, this is very important because this is relevant because one of the charges, and hit that like, y'all, and hit that subscribe as you're here. Oh, I was trying to keep that up. I don't know why it went away. But one of the reasons that the government was seeking an upward increase in the charges is they were claiming that there was obstruction of justice. Remember, that's how they were able to prevent Diddy from getting bond, is they were claiming obstruction of justice. Now, some of that, I believe, happened, but it was not what was presented in court. In court, they were claiming that the obstruction, y'all, I thought it was going to be the fact that with Kalina, because this was in the probation hearing letters submitted to the judge, that he called Kalina, who used to sing in Dirty Money, 154 times the week before she was set to meet with federal investigators, 154 times. So that was part of why they were like, hey, no bail, and they were claiming obstruction of justice. When it came down to trial, y'all, the obstruction was the girl Mia. Remember, she was the She was the former colleague who claimed that he SA'd her for years and she wanted her job back after he laid her off. She basically was claiming that he had D-Rock call her and offer her money while he was under investigation and when he knew that the feds were going around talking to employees. That was supposed to be the obstruction. It was not strong enough at all. It was way too vague. But also, the judge, and I thought this was very fair of the judge, he talked about the fact that Diddy's legal team were like, listen, they as in the Bureau of Prisons, ran up in Diddy's room, cell, they did a search. He had a notebook that he labeled legal. That was his notes and or his homework that he was supposed to do to, or like names, numbers that he was supposed to use and then give to his lawyers to help as, you know, he's working on his case. And that was seized in the search. And apparently there was something in there that the government said supported a claim for obstruction of justice. The judge said, nope. S said legal on it. They should not have taken that. That was inappropriate. So even if it was in there, no upward increase in his sentence for any form of obstruction related to that or anything else. I thought that was very, very fair. It says, I want to hear him and Carisha's combos. Oh, yes, because you know Carisha called him. That'll be a really good one. All right, guys, so let me know in the chat any questions that you have left. I think we've pretty much summed this up. Trial of the century, y'all. He's, like I said, he's going to appeal. I don't think it'll be successful. Next up is I have an update on the Tyler Perry lawsuit. It was much of what I anticipated and thought, and we'll talk about why Tyler Perry's motion to dismiss may have some strength to it. I think he's got a better chance than Diddy's appeal. So there we go. Let me know down below your thoughts, your questions. And you know, I love responding to questions down below. Have a great one. Y'all take care and good night. Bye, y'all.